Hello, everyone. Dr. Odette Suter here. Welcome to the Dog Detox Summit. It's just been such an amazing ride to create it and brought so much joy and creativity. It's just been an unbelievable journey, and I've so appreciated and enjoyed working with the Pet Summits people as well. So I want to give them a shout out first, to Isaac, Mitch, and Rhiannon in particular, and then everybody else behind the scenes. It's just been such an incredible journey so far, and I really hope that you'll all hugely benefit from all the different lectures and presentations, interviews from all of the people, because they have such amazing wisdom in it, and so much information for your animals, to keep them as healthy as possible and to turn their health around, because especially nowadays we are a little bit challenged that way, with getting our animals to be really healthy and stay healthy, especially in the last couple of years. It's been particularly challenging because we've had so much added stress. So anyways, it's so good to see you guys. Hi, Sean. Hi, Michelle. Two people I know. So it's really nice to see you guys. So good. Um, Anyways, I'm sure there are a lot more people that are going to trickle in. So I want to just give it a minute and see. Well, I know that you two guys are from the Chicago area, where all of a sudden it's turned from winter 38 degrees just a couple of days ago, and it's now 88. So it's quite interesting. Hello, Angelo. Nice to see you as well. Where are you at? I don't remember. And Sandy. Hi, Sandy. It's nice to see you. I know I've been a little absent because, well, I've been creating a lot of education, because right now it's really important to have all this education go out there, because we do have such a veterinary and veterinary technician shortage in general. And so the more education that you get and the more informed you all are, the easier you can make it on your animals and also your vets, because they're just a little flooded. And that makes it a little challenging. So I apologize to all of those that have been waiting for me to kind of jump back into practicing. That's just what I've been up to, because I felt like working kind of outside of the problem and trying to fix the problem from the outside is easier than trying to fix it from the inside. So anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, you're from Staten Island in New York. Love it. Hi, Rebecca. Nice to see you as well. Debbie from Virginia. Hi, Carol. Nice to see you from Catskills. Met you at the last summit. Aligned with your wisdom. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, it's been really incredible to create all of that and meet with more of my colleagues, and meet some people in Australia. They're really amazing, actually. They've put in so much work, and they're so aligned with changing the world for our pet parents. So, spread the word, let everybody know how much you like them. Send them a little love. And hi, Joe and Jeanette from Oregon, Joe from Michigan, Marcella from Seattle. Still cold, 59. Well, right now I could use a little bit of cooling. It's so hot here, but it's all good. It's all good. Anyways, I think it's cold here. Buki, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, from Florida. Yeah, my landlord just came back from Florida, and he said it was colder there than it is here, which is really funny. All right. Anyways, I do want to do a little recap of today's, interviews, presentations, that sort of thing, just to kind of share that with you. I'm assuming that most of you probably watched them, but I do have to say that even though I certainly put aside a lot of time, there was a lot to re-listen, because I went through the presentations again myself, because I wanted to, be up to date, because my brain is a little full, so information goes in and out the other end. So I've got my little notes here. So I want to start out with Dr. D. Blanco's presentation, which was really awesome at what she did in bringing all that information together, or narrowing it down to simplify it, because detoxification is obviously not a simple subject. It's quite complicated, especially if we consider how many toxins are out there and what the liver has to do to transform them and get them out the system. So I think she did an awesome job at breaking it down, the phases of detoxification, how to prepare the body, and then also help, with simple nutrients, how to support the liver pathways and the different liver pathways. So she gave a lot of tips and tricks on how to support your animals right away, where you don't even have to wait. You just go out in the garden and find some dandelion, right? At least here they're prevalent everywhere, and it's one of my favorite things that I put in my own smoothie. So she talked a lot about that, and also about the importance of elimination and how critical it is to actually get things out. So just mobilizing toxins in the system can actually make the animals sicker. So we want to make sure that we clean out the pathways so that things can really drain out. So making sure they poop well and they pee well. And also help the skin with baths, to also get some of the toxins off, because of course animals are exposed to toxins that end up on the skin from the environment, and then they also have obviously the things that they take in internally, but we also want to get rid of what's getting on their skin. So especially if you know that, for example, a neighbor just sprayed whatever, that you kind of get that off their skin as well by giving them a little bath. And that may go for cats as well, although good luck with that, because it's not like they're too amenable for doing this sort of bathing experience. They're not too fan of that. Anyways, so she talked about that, and then also when to do detox, what the best time of that is, and that would be in the spring and the fall. So it's really good to also use what the body is already doing naturally, because in the winter, everything goes inward, everything gets held on to, because you never know when you're going to get your next meal, right? At least in nature. Not so much for us anymore, but in nature, that's certainly the case. So everything gets held on. And then as soon as spring starts and all the little things are growing everywhere, then that's when the cleansing starts. And that's when the body starts to let go of the toxins. And so it's really good to support the body during that time. And again, we can do that very simply with whatever is growing out in the yard, as long as it's obviously not sprayed with a lot of glyphosate and other types of things. You can use those. So that's what she talked about. And then we had Angelique Barbara, who talked about the lymph system. And there are a lot of new things that were discovered with the lymph system, including the lymphatic system that is part of the brain's lymphatic system that was discovered just a few years ago. It's actually quite incredible, given all that research that's being done with the body, and we're just slowly starting to find out certain things. But in any case, I thought it was really incredible that she mentioned that the brain shrinks by about 60% when we sleep and our animals sleep. And then there's this flooding of lymph that goes through the brain and then helps to detoxify the brain, which is extremely important, because that's where a lot of the toxins can accumulate, because in general, toxins accumulate more in fatty tissue, because a lot of these toxins out there are fat soluble toxins. So that's where they get stored away. And the brain is basically a clump of fat. So we need to kind of get some of that out of the brain. So she talked about that, but she also talked about the lymphatic system in general with the lymph nodes, how all these lymph vessels go into lymph nodes, and then the lymph nodes help with the white blood cells to help clean up any sort of infectious types of things, and how then the lymph flows in the entire body. And one of the most important things that she really talked about is how exercise is just so crucially important to get that lymph flowing. And I've experienced it myself, just sitting here and doing all the recordings and all of that. When I was sitting too long, my legs would start to swell up a little bit. And that's because the lymph isn't moving, and because, well, I wasn't moving enough. So getting your animals to move is really important to get that lymph flow going and help their body in that detoxification process, because the lymph plays a huge role in that. And the lymphatic system is also very prevalent in the gastrointestinal tract. And so when we have a lot of GI issues, there can also be stagnation of the lymph flow as a result, which that then also impairs how toxins are moving in the body and being, brought to where they need to go to be detoxified. So lots of really cool things about the lymphatic system, including kinesiotaping, and then also the little suction cups that she was putting on. I thought that was really cool, especially over scar tissue, because with scar tissue, very oftentimes the tissues then don't move the way they should against each other. They should all slide and glide. And when we have scars, that kind of interrupts that sliding and gliding, which can then affect all sorts of other areas of the body as well, because everything is connected. So scar tissue in the abdominal wall can cause issues with, for example, the hind legs and how they move, and then can make them more prone to having issues with cruciate ligament tears and arthritis and that sort of thing. So, so really kind of simple things that she showed you how to do, which I thought was really cool. Lymph drainage massage obviously can be done as well, but you just have to be a little careful if you have an animal that has heart issues, kidney issues, any type of infections and blood clots. In those cases, you wouldn't want to do that. All right, and then we had Dr. PJ Broadfoot, the librarian, talk about homotoxicology. Wow, I don't even know how to summarize that, because there was so much information that she brought, in that interview that we did. But I think what I want to focus on with her, what she talked about were the phases of disease, where in phase 1 and 2, which is still more the exterior phase, that's when toxins are being flushed out, where we may have skin eruptions, when we may have inflammation. So the body's trying to get rid of something. There may be a fever, there may be pus or whatever it may be, but things are still trying to go out. And in that phase 1, we can also have diarrhea, for example, or ocular discharge or nasal discharge. And those are really good, because when the body is trying to get rid of things, it's best not to interfere too much with that, so that it can really get rid of things. Because if it doesn't, then whatever that pathogen or toxin is, it can then go into the mesenchyme or the matrix, which is a little bit deeper, which is basically all the tissue that's between the cells. So it's basically what keeps the cells connected with each other. And that's also where the body will store a lot of the toxins, including glyphosate, for example. And she also mentioned that when we have some of these toxins in that matrix, in that mesenchyme, it can cause some fibrosis, which again then prevents that sliding and gliding, because everything gets a little stuck. Which, as we get older, when we get a little stiff, maybe that's what it is. We have that kind of, fibrosis happening that keeps things stuck. And so in that phase, the toxins are stored, but they can still obviously gotten out of the system, but it's a little bit more difficult because it's already gone a little deeper. And I want to add to that mesenchyme and that matrix are extremely important for communication. That's where a lot of the communication between cells is happening. And there are like communication pathways throughout the entire body, so that the cell of the little toe knows what the cell of the nose is doing, for example, because everything has to work together. So that mesenchyme is very important. And when we put a lot of toxins in that, then communication decreases, and communication basically wreaks havoc in the body. And then phase 5 and 6, if we go even deeper, that's where then the toxins and disease goes into the cells, and then also where cancer can start to occur. So she was talking about the phases, how things go inward, but then also with detoxification, we would then go in reverse, opening up phase 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and then 5, 6 to kind of go from, the outside, in to kind of reverse that toxicity. So really a cool way of looking at things. And homotoxicology is basically homeopathic remedies that are mixed together to make it a little bit more simply, because traditional classical homeopathy is just one specific type of remedy that's specific to an individual's physiology and overall picture, and so that's a little bit more challenging to do. But with homotoxicology, it's a little bit easier. But definitely, if you want to work with homotoxicology, it's certainly better to work. I mean, you have to work with a veterinarian on that, because for one, you have to be able to get the remedies. But one of the homotoxicology remedies that probably most everybody knows is Traumeel, or tea relief. That is actually one of the homotoxicology products, because it contains different homeopathic remedies that help with acute trauma and pain, such as arnica, for example, and hypericum, which is really good for nerve pain. And then there's some other ones in there. So anyways, really awesome things. She also talked a little bit about algae and thymus. So I highly recommend that you watch it if you haven't already, and you probably will have to watch it several times to get all of it out of there. So anyways, really awesome. And then we also had Dr. Gary Richter. I squeezed him on the whole endocannabinoid system and CBD, because I wanted to really get that out there as well, because there's a lot of information on CBD and different products, and not everything is all accurate, and it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of information there. So he gave a really good overview of the endocannabinoid system, which is also a bit of a newer discovery, really, where we found that there are so many receptors that respond to cannabinoids, and endocannabinoids are basically substances that the body itself makes that then attach to these receptors. And CBD is, in a sense, an exocannabinoid, because it's something that we give to the body. So anyways, a lot of great information there. And he talked about a little bit of the legal aspect of things, also how to get good products and what to look for, because there are a lot of different types of supplements. And he also talked a little bit about some of the other aspects that are part of these hemp products, because it's not just CBD or THC. There are terpenes, flavonoids, and all sorts of other really good nutrients that help and support the CBD and these endocannabinoid receptors. And we also talked about chocolate. How chocolate is really one of the plants that also will activate or attach to these endocannabinoids. So now I know what I'm doing when I eat chocolate. I'm triggering my endocannabinoid system. So that's my CBD, basically. And then, there are some other things that also have endocannabinoid effects, because I know not all countries are allowed to have CBD oil, or where it's not legal yet. So there are definitely some other things like holy basil, lavender, clove, and also some types of essential oils that also stimulate these endocannabinoid receptors, because there are so many of those in the immune system, the spleen, the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the GI tract. So it wouldn't make sense that there is only one thing, like the one CBD or the THC, that would affect these endocannabinoid receptors. So there are definitely other plants as well. So if you are in a country where it's illegal, there's definitely some other options as well. Yes, dark chocolate, Billy. I think I like you. All right, and then we also had Dr. Roman talk about ozone. Ozone is basically O3, which is, oxygen is O2. So there's two oxygen molecules that attach to each other. And with ozone, we have three oxygen molecules that attach to each other. So she talked about ozone and kind of took it really broadly, because it does help to clean the atmosphere. So every time we have rain and lightning strikes, which is really how ozone is produced, then we have the ozone that kind of drops down, and we have that fresh smell in the air, that's really ozone. But ozone is really amazing. It does so many different things because it helps to stimulate the immune system to work better. It also supports the liver. It supports liver enzymes to help with detoxification because it also brings more oxygen to all of the different aspects of the body. It also kills viruses. It kills bacteria. But not only that, it also breaks down some of the biofilm. And biofilm is like a mucousy layer where a lot of these microbes can hide, including Lyme spirochetes and other Lyme co-infections. And so ozone can help to break that down. Or, for example, if an animal has a urinary tract infection, it can also help break down the biofilm in the bladder if we, put ozone directly into the bladder. So it can help with these chronic types of infections. But yeah, from a detox perspective, it does a whole lot as well and can be very beneficial. And ozone can be provided through IV, where it's mixed with blood and then put back into the system. We can insufflate it directly into the bladder, or we can also do it rectally, which works really well. I have several patients who come on a regular basis for that. In fact, I have one cat who had a tumor in her GI tract, and that tumor went away, and she gets insufflations once every couple of weeks or so. So ozone can be very powerful, and it can also be used for dental cleanings because it can help decrease some of the biofilm in the mouth and also kill some of these microbes. And the good part, one question I had for Dr. Roman that you probably heard about was, what about the good microbes in the mouth? And obviously it does kill some of those as well, but ozone also provides, contrary to antibiotics, for example, it also provides a lot of oxygen that then helps to heal the tissues. So ozone can be used for just about everything. All right, so I think those were today's. And I do want to give a little shout out to our sponsors here while we're at it, before I kind of talk a little bit more about detox and then open up the space for questions. So we have Doggy Biome, which I forgot. There's Holly. Where's my paper? There was Holly Gans. I don't know where I put that. Anyways, Holly Gans talked about the microbiome and how it helps with detoxification. How could I forget? I talk about poop all the time. So anyways, she talked a lot about how the microbiome is so crucially important. She gave you some numbers of how many microbes are there. Like, I think it's 100 trillion microbes that we have in and around our body, and so many different species. And she also said that 90% of all metabolic processes in the body are actually, or the biochemical, well, the microbes are like a little biochemical factory. So a lot of these chemicals that we use in the body to be healthy and to function properly are actually coming from our microbes. So we shared our love of microbes. I should have worn my hat. But anyways, she and I were kind of like soul sisters in that regard. So I hope that you got a lot more appreciation on the microbes, because they're really running the show in the body. And without microbes, we are nothing. And what we're doing with toxins is we're trying to decimate the microbes, and we're making them the enemies, but they are not. They are our best friends. We have to have them. I love it, Michelle. Yeah, lots of poop emojis. So yeah, so listen to her chat as well. And she also talked a little bit about certain studies that they're doing with some of the guide dogs that have GI issues, and helping them with inflammatory bowel disease. And, another study about that. And I mean, they're very involved in studying the microbiome, and their products are really incredible. I love them. And the testing is really easy to do. So yeah, big shout out to them. They are one of the sponsors for the Pet Summit. Thank you so much, Doggy Biome people. I love you guys. And then, here's their website, and then also the code for you guys to order, because you can get 20% off on their animal, their biome products, basically. So take advantage of it, because they're really good. And then we also have Ion from Intelligence of Nature. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch Zach Bush's interview already. You got it starting out in the beginning when you signed up. But I think his talk is tomorrow, his interview. Certainly highly recommend watching that. It's really incredible. Dr. Zach Bush, who created Intelligence of Nature and came up with the Ion product, he's a visionary, and he's like a walking library, and so on the forefront of everything. Yeah, he's just really incredible. I'm kind of a complete fan of his. It probably shows in the interview that I completely fanned out on him. But anyways, so they are offering a 15% off as well. And again, I highly recommend checking out the interview so that you can learn more about Ion. Ion is a molecule that comes from the soil and from microbes as well. So again, the better your microbiome, your dog's microbiome is, or yours and your cats and everybody else is, really, the better it is. The better it can also produce some of these redox molecules, which basically the Ion is a redox molecule that helps with communication, and it helps to restore the body's own ability to heal and function properly. So it's really quite incredible. I highly recommend it, and it's very easy to give. It tastes like water, really. So, animals don't usually have a problem with the taste of it. So highly recommend that. And then we also have Vengeance. A shout out to them as well. They are sponsoring the summit and also providing a code, I believe. They have some binders and some other really amazing supplements to help support the immune system and also help to turn the health of the animals around. And you may notice there's a bit of a common theme going through our sponsors here. They're really working at the foundation of things. And that's really what's so important, because I feel, one of the things that we've noticed here with the Pet Summits people and us is that not as many people have responded to the word detox. So we haven't had quite as many people sign up for the summit. And I think it's because a lot of people aren't quite aware how much detox or how much toxins are actually affecting all of us. And so when we talk about toxins, this is like one of the basic things that are affecting our animals' health. And I always say that there are two basic things that are causing disease or causing malfunctioning of cells, because there's really only one disease. There's the malfunctioning of cells. And the two causes are either a deficiency of certain nutrients or an excess of nutrients, because both of these, deficiency or an excess, will interfere with the body's ability or with the cell's ability to do what it's supposed to do. So when we talk about toxins, I think a lot of people are still kind of zoning out on the fact that we are actually exposed to an incredible amount of toxicity, to the point where, the body or the liver doesn't even recognize some of these toxins because they're so foreign to the body. So right now, at this point in time, there's absolutely no way that we cannot do some detoxification, for not just for our animals, but for ourselves and the entire planet, because we can't just have blinders on and buy blueberries from Chile, for example. We have to kind of go global that way. And I know that can be a bit of a challenge, because as humans, we get quite comfortable with what we do, and we like what we have. And so anytime we're asked to change, that can become quite challenging, especially if we already have a lot of other challenges going on. But in order to really turn this ship around here, we really need to all work on it, and not just for our dogs, but for everyone else, on this planet as well, if we want to survive. Because right now we only have about 60 years worth of farmable soil left. which that's only like maybe 2 or 3 generations or something, if they come close to each other, if there are going to be generations. So it's really quite important that we do a lot of that we work on detoxification. But as Dr. D mentioned, and also Dr. Broadfoot, it is important that we do detoxification properly, because we don't want to overwhelm the body by it. And so going back to the basics, we really need to support the body to be able to detoxify. So we need to provide the foundation, and the foundation is nutrition. And because the nutrition basically brings all the building blocks that are necessary for the liver then to do its thing, for the kidneys to be able to flush things out, for the lymph to flow. So all of these nutrients are necessary to build as building blocks. And so if we don't provide these building blocks, then that's very difficult. So when we do want to detoxify our animals, we need to make sure that we bring these building blocks first, so that they can then actually do it safely. And then also fixing the gastrointestinal tract is extremely important before we do any type of detoxification, because we want to make sure that we close up the barriers. So we don't want to have leaky gut, because if we have leaky gut going on while we detox, these toxins that are coming out of the liver into the bile and into the gastrointestinal tract, they will be reabsorbed. And that can actually cause more toxicity signs in the animals. So nutrition and fixing the gastrointestinal tract are the foundation before we even go into detox. But even just doing that already creates a lot of detoxification in the body, because we're providing good things, and the body will start to dump some of the toxins gradually as it can. So that's really kind of the basics for detoxification. And we are so overloaded with chemicals nowadays that it's just absolutely necessary that we work on that, but be gentle with it. So I know I did have some questions here that people already asked in the Facebook group. And there was one where Linda asked if the greenhouse was sprayed with Roundup to remove the weeds, does the contamination of the soil beds ever leave? Well, I looked it up because I wasn't 100% sure. Glyphosate or Roundup, well, glyphosate is really the active ingredient in Roundup, but there are a whole lot of other things in Roundup that are inactive ingredients that actually make it even more toxic than glyphosate just by itself. So when I looked up glyphosate, what I found is that it's broken down by bacteria, but it does stay in the soil for at least a year. But because in Roundup it's mixed with other ingredients, I'm not so sure how long it really takes. So if it's been sprayed, I probably would wait a while. And you might also be very interested in listening to Steve's interview with Steve. Can't remember his last name now. But anyways, Steve Farrar, we talked about mushrooms, because mushrooms are really good at breaking down some of these chemicals. They can really clean up a lot. So it might be worth using some mushroom compost, and then just let it be for a while, and just kind of let it, disintegrate. Or you can also put some more topsoil on top of that, so that the glyphosate is lower down, because things will not necessarily come back up as much. But you'd probably have to put a good layer on there because of the roots of the plants, and then maybe only use some plants that have more shallow roots, so that they don't go all the way down and then grab the glyphosate to come back up. But so that would be probably what I would recommend for that. And then a part of that question was also, should I continue to use it for vegetables? Yeah, those would be kind of my recommendations. And I do want to talk just briefly about glyphosate, because glyphosate is really, challenging. It chelates minerals in the soil, which then makes plants less able to absorb minerals and have nutrition in them. So as a result, we end up with depleted, plants, basically. It also causes all sorts of disruptions of the microbiome because it's an antibiotic. And it also destroys the villi of the gastrointestinal tract, which are little finger-like structures that have one layer of cells around them and enzymes all around it and microbes kind of sitting in between. And basically what it does is it destroys these villi that then become blunted, and we end up with leaky gut and poor absorption. So glyphosate is definitely a huge issue for the gastrointestinal tract, but it causes all sorts of other problems as well, including increasing the risk of cancer. It's an endocrine disruptor. It causes birth defects. And it also causes the liver to not function properly because it inhibits one of the most important pathways in the liver, which is the cytochrome P450 pathway, which Dr. D, I believe, talked about that a little bit. So it disrupts that pathway. So it basically then causes the liver to be less able to detoxify things. And it also opens up the blood-brain barrier, where then more toxins can go into the brain and cause inflammation in the brain. And what do we see nowadays? We see a lot of issues with behavior, aggression, anxiety, all those types of things, and then also cognitive dysfunction as they get a little bit older. Definitely, we have a lot of problems with glyphosate in that regard, and it also causes mitochondrial damage. And mitochondria are the little energy factories that are in the cells. Dr. Zach Bush talks about those a little bit as well. All right, and then there was another question. I can't remember who it was now. So about the importance of the microbiome and what foods that were found to have a lot of glyphosate in them. So there was a study done where they actually found that glyphosate was most prevalent in foods that had that were grain-free, and that was because you found it. Thank you. So basically the foods that are grain-free tend to be highest in glyphosate, and that's because glyphosate is not only just used on GMO crops like corn, but it's also used on legumes, because a lot of these legumes are also created such that they are resistant to being killed by herbicides. And so glyphosate is then also sprayed on those liberally, and that then ends up in the dog food. So dog food that is high in carbohydrates in general will be higher in glyphosate, but certainly the ones that are grain-free were the highest. So the lowest, the foods with the lowest amount of glyphosate would be a raw diet that doesn't have a lot of carbs in it to begin with. And of course, also the more organic something is, the better. But nowadays there's glyphosate in everything, because the problem is that glyphosate, because it's water soluble, it goes up into the clouds, and then when it rains, it comes back down. And so it ends up in the air, in the water supply. I mean, it's basically everywhere. So no matter how organically you're growing something, there's going to be some glyphosate there. But certainly there's a lot less in those animals when they eat a raw diet. So they did some urinalyses on these dogs as well, and saw that they had a lot less glyphosate in those. All right, so I think those were the questions. What is the ideal macronutrient ratio of carbs, proteins, fats, fiber that dogs need? Well, that's a good question. Not as much of a detox question in that sense, but certainly a very foundational question, because it goes back to nutrition and feeding a good nutrition. And certainly what supports the body the best is if they eat a diet that's as close to what they would eat in the wild, because that's what their physiology was really made to process. It's just like in humans. If we eat McDonald's food every day, then we will get sick pretty quickly. Whereas if we eat things that our ancestors were eating, in the wild, then we definitely function better, because the body has not changed to the extent that some people would like us to believe. Especially in the animal world, they say that, oh, dogs are now really used to eating kibble, and they've adapted to that. But that's certainly not true, because evolution and change takes time when it comes to the body, and adaptation takes time. And kibble has only been on the market for not even 100 years. So animals have definitely not gotten used to that. So when it comes to ratio of certain macronutrients, then we want to see what they eat in the wild. And in the wild, I looked at a rabbit, for example. If we take a rabbit apart, including skin and everything, in there, then they have the amount of protein that they have in there is 61%. Fat is 26%, and carbohydrates 12%, and that's per dry matter. So that's with all the water removed. Whereas, for example, in kibble, we have kind of the reverse happening. So we have 64% carbs in some formulas, and versus 12% in the food that they would eat in the wild. So if we reverse what they eat as far as macronutrient balance, that's obviously a big issue. And then when it comes to breeds, obviously every breed is going to be a little bit different of maybe what they require and how much they require. But I think we have to go beyond breeds. We have to go to the individual, because every animal is an individual and will have different needs, just like in humans. And that's why there's a gazillion different diets out there. It's because there are so many different individual needs, and the body will have different requirements. And so I think it's really important that we listen to our animal's body and see what they like. Because if you have a dog who just absolutely doesn't like vegetables, then that may not be the best food for your dog. Whereas if you have a dog who loves to go in your garden and eat the cucumbers off the vine, then maybe that's what they need, because they're very good at figuring out what they need. They have that sense, just like us too. Oh, today I feel like eating chocolate or today I'd like some strawberries. So if we listen to the body and our animal's body, then we will also provide them what they need. And that's actually one of the talks, I believe, I can't remember which day, but Carolyn Ingraham talks about that, where you can do a lot of healing by allowing them to use their own senses and to choose. And it's something that I've integrated a little bit more in my practice as well. When I have different herbs that I'm thinking about, I just open the bottle and stick it in front of the dog's or cat's nose and see what they think. And sometimes they will give me an answer on that and be very clear about it, especially when they then want to eat it, even though it smells really bad. Someone like some of these Chinese herbs. But in any case, so when it comes to nutrients, every animal and everybody is really individual of what they need, because it so much depends on what's in the food. What kind of food are you feeding? Where is it originating from? How many nutrients were in the plants that made the cow that then, and how did the cow absorb all of the nutrients from the plant? And then how did that go, how did the nutrients get supported during processing? And then how did your dog then absorb it? So it's really almost impossible to know exactly what what needs to go into your animal, or what goes into your animal, because it's so complex. And if an animal has GI issues, for example, they will not absorb things as well. And one really perfect example of that is vitamin D. I do a lot of vitamin D testing, and sometimes I have dogs from the exact same litter who've always lived together. They've always had the same diet, and one has normal levels of vitamin D and the other one is completely deficient. So, all of these nutrients, we try to do the best we can and focus a little bit on a balanced diet based on some of the guidelines from certain, nutrition experts. But in the end, every animal is going to be a little bit different. And so it's really worth listening to the different, to your animal and seeing what it is that they need. Of course, we still need to provide them with what they should have a little bit, because animals can be a little bit like kids, like, oh yeah, I don't feel like eating vegetables, I'm not hungry anymore, my stomach is full. And then you bring out the chocolate or the ice cream and they're like, oh yeah, I've got room. So, some of the animals are a little bit like that. And some dogs will just eat grass just because they like grass. It adds a little bit of extra fiber. It has chlorophyll in it. So some of them just like it. And obviously, if they use grass for vomiting, then you want to find out what's going on, why the gastrointestinal tract may be irritated. So definitely, you want to kind of look at that. But if a dog eats grass, that's not really usually a big issue. They tend to do just fine with that. Obviously, you want to make sure that they don't eat grass that has been sprayed heavily. So that was Lisa's question. And then Margaret, what about detoxing for medications such as prednisone, which my dog has been on for white dog shaker syndrome? Well, certainly some of these medications, they can get stuck in that matrix that Dr. PJ Broadfoot talked about. So some of these can stay in there. And she shared an example, which is in a way a little hilarious, where people would go into a sweat lodge and then they would basically trip up because they had done some drugs and LSD or whatever, years or decades prior, and that had gotten stuck in that in that tissue. And then when they were starting to sweat and such, these drugs would then get mobilized and would end up causing them to have a bit of a episode, basically. But certainly there are some drugs that can stay in the system, and we certainly won't know all of that. But in general, I don't know that we can particularly detox prednisone in that sense. At least I'm not familiar with that. I haven't really looked into that, but certainly all of these drugs have to go through the liver. So supporting the liver will certainly help to support that. And detoxification is a little bit like, like if you have a toilet that's plugged up, if you unplug the toilet, then things can flush down. So what we do with detoxification, we kind of open up that pluggedness, and then things can start to slowly funnel out. And the body is really good at kind of monitoring and gauging how much at once it can do. So the body is really smart that way. But basically, if you're focusing on the basics of detoxification, then you will achieve better health. And it may, and most likely it will also take out some of the prednisone. But I don't really know if prednisone stays in the body all that long. But certainly some of the flea and tick preventatives, they will stay in the body for quite some time and cause havoc that way. And then also the toxins from vaccines and that sort of thing. But again, that brings me back to the basics. We get so focused on the little details here and there, but we need to just go to the basics. Good nutrition so that they get the nutrients they need. Fixing the gastrointestinal tract, that will do a lot for detoxification already. And that also will decrease inflammation, which then, as a result, you may not need all of these drugs. And then, working on the detox pathways to help support them with the very simple things that Dr. D recommended. And of course, if an animal is really sick, then I recommend working with a veterinarian on that. But what Dr. D shared with you guys was really good, something that you can do with a somewhat healthy animal, and get started. And even on a sick animal, you can also get started with that a little bit, because it will just support them, and it's very gentle. But yeah, focusing on the basics, because that's one of the biggest issues that I see in the veterinary field, or the field of pet health, is that people get so focused on one little thing that they forget the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is really to take care of the entire body and help the cells to function better. And that's why in my practice, I use the 7 pillars of health, which starts with the first pillar is nutrition. The second is fixing the gastrointestinal tract. The third pillar is detoxification. The fourth pillar, the pillars that kind of follow that, they are kind of used somewhere, wherever they are needed, including looking at hormonal health. So we want to make sure that the hormones are in good order, that they make enough adrenal hormones, they make enough thyroid hormones, and if not, that we support those. And then one of the other pillars is the nervous system, because everything is innervated by the nervous system. There's communication happening, and the nervous system also innervates the detox organs, including the liver and the kidneys and the GI tract and everything else. So we want to make sure that the communication to all of these organs is happening. And then obviously fitness and exercise is crucial, because if an animal doesn't move and is just pretty much just a couch potato, then things get really sluggish, and without good circulation of things, toxins will accumulate more as well. And I think exercise, I harp a lot on that with my clients and in my course as well, because it can be a wonder drug. I mean, it can save you so much money, not just for your animals, but also for yourself. So make sure that you exercise your animals as much as they possibly can. Obviously, if you have an old crickety dog who is lame, you don't want to go for a marathon run, of course. So you have to use judgment for that, but move them even in the wintertime. Make sure that they move, because I do have patients who they don't do much in the wintertime, and then you can see it in the spring. When spring comes around, they've had a major decline during that time. So we don't want that to happen. And then also emotional and mental health, which that is really crucial, because stress levels are now known to, or increase of stress can be more deadly than being a chain smoker. So stress is hugely important when it comes to health, and that's why on one of these days, we talk a lot about stress and emotions and energy and that sort of thing. So definitely tune into those really amazing interviews with Barry Sands, Susan Wagner, and then also Miranda Alcott, who's an animal communicator, and then also Patricia Jordan, who talks about electromagnetic radiation and fields and how that is affecting our animals. So you want to kind of get to the basics, remove toxicity, remove the exposure, feed them what they need, support their gastrointestinal tract, support detoxification, and then add all the other pillars to it. And I know they posted that. You should have seen that, the 7 Pillars of Health, the ebook. Make sure you download that, because those are the basics. And if you can get the basics in, your animal is going to be so much better off. And then you don't have to worry about finding a shampoo for the skin. For example, I mean, you still need to have a good shampoo for the skin, but then you don't have to worry so much about trying to fix one little thing. Because if you give them the basics for everything, every single cell of the body is going to be able to heal and function better. And that's what we want. We want the body to function better. We don't want to just suppress symptoms, because trying to find a shampoo for an itchy skin, that's just like trying to suppress symptoms. We want to try to get away from that. But what is causing the problem in the first place? So we want to go find the cause to begin with, and then help these cells to function better, because otherwise it's like putting a piece of duct tape on your car engine light when it comes on, and that's that down the road gets you stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night because you didn't take care of that. And it's the same with our animals. It's the same with our planet. It's the same with us humans. It's the same for everybody. We have to look at the underlying cause and then provide the basics, the foundation, and then things can work a whole lot better. So it's not really rocket science that way. We just have to remember to look at the basics and ask these questions. All right, let's see if there were any other questions. Question on detox pathways. Is there a template somewhere to do an assessment before starting and after doing a detox? That is something, that's a good question. What I would do is I would check in with Dr. D. Blanco and sign up for her newsletter. And I'm sure she can help you out with that, because she talked about the assessment. And then there's also Dr. Christina Chambreau. She was on the last Detox Summit, I believe, or the one before that, or both. I can't remember. Well, I think she was on Dr. D's summit. on the Holistic Dog Care Summit. So you could certainly also check in with Dr. Chambreau to get a list for that. Yeah, and she has a book as well. I wish I had it right next to me. She has a diary book basically where you can then write down things in that, and she gives you a guide on how to do that. All right, so what other questions? If you have a problem dog like mine that has anaplasmosis, okay. Yeah, okay, how often should detoxification be done? Well, that very much would depend whether the anaplasmosis is still active and your dog has issues with it, because a lot of animals, they will actually be fine. They will just go through it. They will be positive for it on a test, but they will have cleared the infection. So it depends a little bit on that. So again, it's so individual and it's hard to really say how often, but you can, generally most animals will tolerate a very gentle detox, like, adding a little bit of dandelion, for example. And then also, yeah, I totally forgot, there's Dr. Ihor Bosco's interview. He shares a lot of recipes of really yummy drinks. They actually looked really good on the pictures. I need to make them for myself, but he has some very simple detox juices that you can give your animals as well. And he talks a little bit about fasting and intermittent fasting and the benefits of that in detoxification, because with detox and overall health of the body, it can be very helpful to also give the body a little bit of a break so that it can recuperate and deal with the things that it needs to deal with instead of having to deal with the food that's coming in. So that can be helpful as well. Of course, again, it depends a little bit on the animal. Yeah, but generally for my clients, what I usually recommend is to do some detox twice a year, like a little bit of a detox phase. So spring and fall, anytime the seasons are changing. And then just doing a little bit of gentle detox support or liver support, on a daily basis. And that can be with a little bit of algae or a little bit of spirulina, a little bit of a green juice. If you're making a smoothie for yourself, just add a little bit of that to your animal's food if they like it. Things like that can be very helpful. All right, do we have any more questions here? Oh yeah. Is ozonated water worth exploring if ozone therapy isn't available in my direct areas? Yeah, certainly. You can certainly do that because you can make your own ozone water. There's O3 Vets has ozone machine that you can purchase, and then you can make your own ozone water. I do have some clients who also do rectal ozone on their animals themselves. Certainly something that you can learn. Your veterinarian could teach you on how to insert this little tube so that you can do that at home even. So I have people who do that. So that's certainly something that you can do. All right, any other questions? Okay, is there one simple thing we can do to detox our dogs? Well, basically all the things that I talked about are really the things that are working really well for detoxification of your dogs. Feeding a clean diet, removing them out from the rain, from all the toxic pollution, looking around your house, cleaning up your house as far as that is concerned, getting rid of all the smelly plug-in lamps, the scented candles, because those are very toxic. Making sure that the toys of your animals are non-toxic, because a lot of them will have mercury or lead, I should say, lead and aluminum in them, and all kinds of other phthalates. What else? When you buy furniture, buy used furniture, because it will already have outgassed a lot of the chemicals. So that will create less exposure. So yeah, take them out of the rain, because if an animal is still getting all the toxins while you're trying to detoxify, that sort of defies the purpose a little bit. So you want to take them out of the rain so that they can heal. All right, any other questions? Would you talk more about beets being a gentle detox? Dr. D mentioned it. Yes, beets are really good because they help the bile to be a little bit more liquid, so less congealed, and that can help just move the bile, because sometimes when the bile gets a little bit too dry in the sense, it can cause that sludge that they can see on ultrasound, or it can cause bile stones. And so that you want to kind of liquefy that a little bit, that bile, so that it can flow better and get out of the GI tract. So beets can help with that. And there are some supplements. Dr. D actually has some on her website as well, that have beets in them. But you can also do a little bit of juicing of beets yourself and just add a little bit of that to your dog's food. Or even better, just stick it in a blender, just a little bit of it. That's what I do for mine. Yeah, so that's the beets. Anything else? I've seen natural sprays you can spray on vegetables and fruit to get rid of any chemicals that are on fruits and vegetables. Would that really help? It might. I mean, you definitely would want to make sure that whatever you're spraying on the vegetables to clean them isn't more toxic than what's already on your vegetables to begin with. And I want to point out to the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org. They have a list of things that, not a list, but basically they have, you can do a search, so you can put in whatever the thing is that you want to use, and then they will tell you whether it's safe or not. So they have that for cleaning products, they have it for beauty products, for for all sorts of things. And they also have an app, a phone app, where you can you can scan whatever the product is, and then it will give you some information on whether it's safe or what to look for. So the Environmental Working Group is really amazing that way. So definitely check them out. They are very helpful that way with water as well. And I'm talking about water, I think, tomorrow. I'm not very good at the schedule part, keeping it in my brain, but I'm talking about water and how you can find out more about, what your water may be like in your area as well, and also some other really cool benefits on water, and what some new discoveries. So I guess this summit is a little bit about new discoveries as well, about the lymphatic system, the brain, the endocannabinoid system, and then also the water. There are some new discoveries that are really, really fascinating. So enjoy that. All right, Jenny, do we have anything else? All right. What about detoxing for medication? Oh yeah, I already responded to that one, I think. I don't know if there was anything else. Oh, Angelo, when your dog is detoxing, can they have diarrhea or soft stools, getting rid of toxins? Well, they certainly could, but if the body is prepared really well for detoxification, they should really have very little to no symptoms at all. Because if they do get really sick from detoxification, it just means that their body was not able to catch up, and that the liver and the elimination organs probably need a little bit more help. So certainly we want to be careful. And if that were the case, if you're in the middle of doing some detox with your animal and they're not feeling well, then you definitely want to make sure that you back off a little bit and give them a little bit of time to settle back in and process whatever got mobilized. But again, when the foundation is there with good nutrition and good gastrointestinal health, usually they do pretty well with that. And of course, we also need to make sure that the hormones are present, because, for example, if there's not enough thyroid hormone present in the body, then none of the cells can really work at the speed that they need to. So everything is slowed down, and as a result, also liver detoxification will be slowed down, because if there's not enough thyroid hormone, it's like trying to bake a cake at like 100 degrees. It's just not going to go anywhere. It's just going to stay like like the batter. So same with cells. The metabolic rate has to be there, and it has to be the right metabolic rate for things to process. And when there's not enough thyroid hormone, the metabolic rate will go down, and then things get really sluggish. And that's how animals then get overweight, and they accumulate toxins and everything. So hormones are very important for that. I hope that answers your question. All right. Okay, I don't know that I can say your name. Dimples? Sorry. Or Dimples. Oh, maybe that's just a nickname. Anyways, I think it's cute. Are monthly heartworm tick flea treatments safe for puppies? No, most likely not. If you're talking about the NexGard, Simparica, Brevectos of the world, Frontlines, all of that, they are not. So some of them actually have FDA warning on them because they have caused a lot of deaths and neurologic issues. And some people have had a very rude awakening after giving some of these drugs to their animals as preventatives, where it basically destroyed their animal's health, or they even died. So they are not safe. And I highly recommend that you watch Dr. Judy Morgan's presentation. I believe that's on Tuesday, where she talks about all of those. And she's done a lot of studying, and she's been very vocal about that. And when you look around Facebook too, there are Facebook groups that have tens of thousands of people in it with animals that have been damaged by some of these treatments. So they definitely are not safe. Generally. Some animals may do fine because you may not see things, but they're very risky, especially the ones that are longer, that are like good for 3 months or stay in the body for, 6 months or even a year with these heartworm injections. Those are horrible because, first of all, these heartworm injections, they were removed from the market because they were killing dogs, and then they reintroduced them. And the first one was a 6-month version of it, and now they're actually having a 1-year version of it. So don't do it. Anything that stays in the body for an extended period of time, once it's in and your dog has a problem with it, or your cat, you cannot take them out. They're in the system. There's no way of removing those. So yeah, I highly recommend being extremely careful, because it can really ruin an animal's health and life completely, and yours as well, because obviously when the animal is suffering, you're going to be suffering with them, especially when they end up with seizures and that sort of thing. So definitely, I highly recommend that you watch Dr. Judy Morgan's talk first before you give your puppy anything. Because for the most part, if the body is healthy, if you apply the 7 pillars of health to your animal, then your animal will be much more able to get rid of, or will be less attractive to ticks and fleas to begin with. And if they were to get infected with anything that comes from ticks or mosquitoes, such as heartworm, they're also much more able to deal with that and kill it, because the body has an incredible capacity of dealing with whatever is coming, and also an incredible capacity of living with things. So if you support the body to be really healthy, then for the most part, you're probably never going to need any of these things, and your puppy will be fine. Plus, flea and tick preventatives don't really prevent anything, but I don't want to go too much into that because Dr. Morgan talks about it. So I'm going to leave it to her, because that's like, telling somebody how the film ends or the book ends. So we don't want to do that. Yeah, so check out the schedule. So she'll be talking about that. All right, so let's talk just a little bit about the schedule. Let me just pull it up for myself real quick here, just so I can kind of tell you just a little bit more about it. So on day 1, well, that was today. Day 2, we'll talk a little bit more about toxin exposures and where they came from. And on day 3, a little bit more about how to support the body in detoxification. And then day 4 will be all about energetic toxins. And those are extremely important, especially nowadays with, the huge increase of stress and the huge, and not just that, we kind of live in a world right now where a lot of things are changing, and where we really have a chance of turning things around, and also going from more of a fear-based state of being to a heart-based state of being, where things are more based on love rather than fear and worry and guilt and shame and all that, judgment and whatever else we have going on as humans. So definitely day 4 is hugely important nowadays because we are in such a period of change, and so that will really help. Plus, we also have Patricia Jordan who talks about EMFs, and I know nobody wants to hear about that because it's just so more convenient to have your cell phone right next to you, to have Wi-Fi and all of that. But make sure you listen to it, because there are some doctors who are now actually not even taking patients anymore who don't want to remove EMFs from their environment. So you definitely want to make sure that you listen to that, because it's just really important. And then on day number 5, it'll be more about prevention and also planetary cleansing. So we have Dr. Judy Morgan. We also have Dr. Kendra Pope, who will talk a little bit about the different support that you can give the animals that have issues with cancer. And then we also have Adrienne Gottschalk. She will talk a little bit about how you can support your own backyard to help make the environment a little bit better for your animals. And so anyways, lots of good stuff coming. And I would really ask as well, again, because it seems like people are not so aware of toxicity, that you share this with everybody you can, just to bring more awareness, because it's really huge, and there's lots of love coming everybody's way, and we have a huge opportunity to change the world and make a big difference. And every little stone that we throw, which you guys are all the little pebbles, you make a ripple, and if we can make more ripples, that would be really awesome. Much appreciated from all of us, from our animals. I mean, everybody would benefit from that. So it's not just something I want because we want more people on the summit. It's because we want to change the world. So on that note, I think we're going to close up, unless there were other questions, Jindy. Yeah, that's my website. If you want to have more information, I do have my own courses and educational programs happening that cover the 7 pillars of health in more detail, to kind of help you out and help my veterinary colleagues out as well, so that they have better educated people. And also, I'm basically creating troublemakers. And that's what I always say, because the more trouble you are for your vets, and the more you question, especially the conventional vets, the more change will happen, because change will happen through you guys. You're the ones that are changing the world. So thank you for that. I so appreciate it. I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for your amazing questions as well, and for the love and for participating. Yeah, so much love. My heart is so full. Thank you. All right, and there will be a panel on Tuesday, so I hope you'll come to that. You'll see some familiar faces. I won't take away too much of the surprise, although Pet Summits may send out an email about that. I don't know exactly, but in any case, it'll be really fun and great, familiar faces, people that you already know and love. So I hope you'll be able to come and share in the party and the energy, because the more people come together, the bigger the energy gets and the more it spreads. So thank you guys all so much. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks again to Pet Summits people. Love you guys. All right, bye.